Hey everybody, Derek here to bring you another video for The Walking Dead Season 6. And what this video is going to be doing is focusing on Morgan. I did a video on Carol, kind of predicting where I think her character is going to go. And now I'm going to do one for Morgan to kind of see where I think he is going to go. If you are not caught up with the television show up through episode 9, and you do not want to be spoiled in any way, then exit the video now and come back later, because otherwise you will be spoiled. Okay, so when we look back at Morgan's character and look at the progression to where he is now, we see that, Morgan started out as a family man. He had a wife, Jenny, a son, Dwayne. Again, him and Carol are both parents. And, we see that Morgan losing his family is really what pushes him to become the survivor that he is and was, previously in Season 3, kind of like how Carol progressed with her character. But we saw that Morgan, when he ended up progressing, he got to a point where he was just a clearer. His purpose was to go out and kill walkers and probably people too, and just clear. His goal was to clear the world of any threats. And I think the reason for that was a little bit related to grief, PTSD, and kind of like what Eastman describes. It's this idea of, you revisit the moment, Morgan, and, you think that what you're doing now will, make up for what happened before, but it's not. What's done is done. Here's not here in a sense. You're there. You're in that moment when you should be focusing on the here and the now. And that's part of the problem with Morgan, was he was continually going back and reliving that moment, which I think, made him act out in that fashion. And really the only people that were able to break him out of that trance were Rick in Season 3 and Eastman. And of course that was a very important development for Morgan's character when he met up with Eastman, because, once Rick left, all that Morgan was doing was clearing again. No change in his character had been formed. There was no progression. The only reason why he left was because he burned the place down accidentally. So, he comes across Eastman, who's been living in the woods with his goat, Tabitha, and, who's been, really changing his own perspective as well. He has learned Aikido. He's been living this practice, not letting the surrounding world change him into a killing person, someone who is losing their humanity. And that's something that, Morgan at first doesn't understand. Morgan's still stuck in the moment, tries to kill Eastman a couple of times in that moment, but, Eastman is finally able to get through to Morgan. And, he teaches him to become more peaceful, teaches him Aikido, and Morgan is able to find peace within himself. Of course, Eastman dies when he steps in front of the walker that Morgan had originally killed the man as a person, and then Morgan couldn't bring himself to kill that walker haunted by that memory, so Eastman stepped in, got bit, and then took care of the walker. And, from this point, when Eastman dies, Morgan decides to leave, and he wants to go find Rick. Once he realizes where, he is, he starts to travel in that direction. And we see that Morgan, has adopted Aikido, that he does believe in this position of all life is precious, we shouldn't kill. Now, we've seen that there are negative consequences to that. As admirable a position that is, we see where not doing that may have killed more people than what would have been saved if Morgan maybe would have killed the wolves in the Season 5 finale. Because, they got away. They ended up finding the pictures to Alexandria that Aaron dropped. They go there. They kill multiple civilians inside of Alexandria. Morgan is able to kick five of them out. He beats them, with his stick and is able to convince them that there are people with guns behind him. And, that convinces five of them to leave. They run into Rick. Rick almost gets killed. He's able to overpower them. And then you get to the wolf, the alpha wolf, who he took prisoner. And, it led up to what happened in episode 9, which is, well, in the previous episode, Carol and Morgan fought over whether the wolf should be killed or not, with Morgan defeating Carol and then the wolf knocking Morgan out. And then the wolf ends up taking Denise. And during that time, the wolf may have changed. We don't know. It really did leave open this idea of interpretation where we don't know if the wolf actually, formed a better position about the world, that he completely changed, and that's the reason why he saved Denise, or if it was just, hey, I need the doctor, this is just, for survival's sake. And also, you might want to consider that maybe it was this instinctual response, that maybe, so some of us have that, that it may have been based off of things that have happened in our past, or maybe a job or something that, we have learned. Maybe if in our history, in our lives, we hear a large, bang or something, we might run away from it. That's just our instinct kicking in, run, run, run. But, maybe you might see a situation where somebody calls for help and a person who used to be a firefighter or a police officer, someone like that, might hear that, and instead of, running and calling 911, their instinct kicks in and then they go and, go towards the help. People have different responses to different situations, and it may have just been, the wolf, for one moment, hears Denise yelling help, and, it's just this instinct that's in him to, save her, but, then he gets back to his, reality situation, and, he may have had ill intentions with her, he may not have. We will never find out because the wolf has been killed. So, before, I was talking about, that I think that maybe this experience might convince Morgan that Aikido does not work and that he should abandon it. And at this point, now that the episode has happened, I don't think that Morgan's going to stray away from the course at this point. I think that, somehow, some way, I think that Denise is going to tell Morgan about what happened, and that may convince Morgan, hey, it takes a lot of work, but it works. And I think that that's a lot of his idea. Look, it's not easy. I'm not saying that this way is a piece of cake, and he acknowledges it. He acknowledges that it's hard to live by. He acknowledges that there are times where he does wish that he could give it up. But, I think for two reasons he doesn't. One is because he worries about reverting back to that clearer. I think that he has a legitimate concern that if he starts killing again, that he's going to start reliving those memories that he has of Jenny and Dwayne, and then that's going to cause him to, become the person that he was again. And I think the other reason is just to honor Eastman. Eastman gave him a chance when Eastman didn't really have to do that. Eastman could have easily just killed Morgan and had been done with it. Like, hey man, you tried to kill me, I tried to give you a chance, I'm done. But he didn't. Eastman kept pushing. And it did work. And I think that once Morgan hears about this, I think he's more inclined to, say, hey, I was right. It may not have been perfect. It may not have been the best, first try or, perfect circumstances, but I think he's going to be convinced that what he's doing is the right thing. And I think that it's going to be very interesting moving forward to see what he's going to do. And I think that personally, Morgan may not be looking to change. He may be trying to help Carol, become a better, humane survivor, if you will, to get Carol to, calm down a little bit, to get her to step back, take a look at things, and try to, revert back more to a humane status. I'm not saying Carol's totally inhumane, but, I think that she's really at a point right now where it could either get better or it's going to get worse. And I think that Carol may be starting to realize this and may be looking either to Morgan or to someone else to help her. And I think that Morgan is going to be there. But what I think Morgan's challenge is going to be moving forward is actually trying to apply Aikido, not getting rid of it. I don't think that he's going to want to change. I think that, given the circumstances of the wolf and everything that's happened, I think he's going to say, hey, if we all would adopt this, guess what? It could work. Or, hey, I get you guys don't want to follow this, but this is the path that I need to follow. And I'm committed to it, and there's evidence that it works. And I think that's going to convince him to utilize it moving forward. But what I think is going to happen is that he's going to have a problem with reconciling the reality of the world and Aikido, kind of like how he already has been, except I think it's going to be involved with the saviors instead of just this internal conflict within Alexandria. Because one thing that you can't forget when you look at all of these circumstances is that, Morgan and Eastman were alone. Eastman lived in that cabin alone after, Crichton Davis died, the guy who killed his family. He hadn't, as far as I can tell, he had not seen exactly the extent of what the world is. And I think the same thing applies to Morgan. Morgan has also been alone. And it's only now that he's, joined with the Alexandria community that he actually knows what it's like to socialize, to see exactly how people interact, how different people might be thinking, as well as what different groups are doing. I think that that's finally hit him now that he is with this group. And I think moving forward, I think that what Morgan is going to have the challenge of doing is making a choice between, do I utilize Aikido and potentially risk somebody dying because of me not acting? Or do I let that person die and stick to my beliefs? I think that's the trick right now. Because, we're going to have a lot of things coming up with the Saviors. And whether Morgan is going to survive Season 6 or not is definitely a big question. I could see that going either way, honestly. But what I really think, the big step for him moving forward is can I reconcile Aikido with my fellow survivors to the extent that I can help them instead of letting them die? Because I would not doubt that there's going to be another encounter with the Saviors and Rick's group. Maybe even at the walls of Alexandria. In the comic books, that is something that does happen. The Alexandria survivors actually get attacked by the Saviors. The Saviors end up coming to the wall of Alexandria, and a small, skirmish happens. And it's very possible that that might happen. And, Morgan may have to make a decision then, or I think that maybe Morgan might be going outside of the walls and, doing things maybe with Rick, maybe with Carol, something. And, we may run into a situation where, maybe the Saviors, find him and Carol together, or maybe him and another survivor together. And it's not possible at this point to peacefully work out a solution, or it's not possible for Morgan to, utilize the defensive Aikido. Because you gotta admit, Morgan got lucky. Morgan got lucky in the sense that the wolves did not carry guns, and even when they did, they weren't loaded. So you're dealing with people that are, using weapons that are similar to yours, but the Saviors are going to have guns that are loaded and ready to go, and there might be multiple ones. And, Morgan might be able to utilize his skills to kill somebody, but maybe not, disable them. And it may come down to, him having to watch someone like Carol or maybe Rick or Carl or somebody possibly might be getting killed, and Morgan might have to make a choice. Will I stick with Aikido, or will I save my friends? And I think that that's going to be the big issue moving forward. Because, granted, when he let the wolves go, he wasn't there when Rick was attacked. And it makes you wonder, what response would he have done in that moment if he was there? Maybe, he would have used the same skills, but when different threats put themselves into these situations, and there comes a time when Morgan can't use Aikido as the solution, is he going to be forced to kill, and will he do it? That, I think, is the big thing with him going forward. I don't think he's going to want to change, but I think that when you get close to people, when you form a group dynamic, at times you may have to set your own beliefs aside in order to help people out, or to make yourself safe, or to make those other individuals safe. And Morgan may be forced into a situation where either somebody dies because of him, or somebody might die because of him, and he's either going to have to utilize his skills to take the saviors out, or the bandits, or whoever they run into, but I'm assuming we're just going to be focusing on the saviors moving forward, or he's going to have to give his own life to stand up for his beliefs, and I could see that happening. I could see a situation where, kind of like how Eastman stepped in for Morgan in that episode and got bit, there may be a situation where Morgan may have to step in and potentially, take a bullet, take a walker bite, take a knife to save somebody else. That way he can accomplish both feats. He can save the individual that he wants to save, but also not kill. So I think that's the real focus for him going forward. Not abandoning Aikido, but seeing how he can make it work. And we may find that he can't, and he may die saving somebody's life, or he may have to, make it work with the world. We'll see what happens, but those are my predictions right now for Morgan. Obviously, I wish we knew a little bit more, but I think the comic books are really going to be changing. The TV show is really going to be utilizing a different story that we're not familiar with in the comics when it comes to interacting with the saviors. So there's a lot of guesswork at this point, but that's what I think the big storyline and the big focus is going to be on with him. So with that, I'm going to bring this video to a close. I want to thank all of you guys for watching. If you have any questions or comments, don't be afraid to leave them. Feel free to subscribe. I do have more videos coming, and if you have any suggestions for future videos that you would like to see, don't be afraid to suggest them. Have a wonderful evening, and thank you very much for watching.